Well, hello again. Talking week 3 high school football, and I had the Noblesville Fishers game tonight out at Noblesville Beaver Stadium at Noblesville's. Man, what a great facility that place is! It's a college-like atmosphere, a college-like building and stadium, and Noblesville fans obviously really, I think, jacked up to see this team and how they do against Fishers. And Fishers just took it to him. It was really an offensive display. Bennett Gorak ended up 23 for 27, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 different guys caught touchdown passes too. He spread the wealth, and the one who didn't, John Anthony Hall, actually had the most. 10 catches for 89 yards. But really, Joe Cyrus, 7 for 79 and a touchdown. Noah McPeak, 5 for 84 and a touchdown. Joel Gates caught a 28-yard touchdown pass later in the game. Gorak really played well, and I think will give Fishers a good chance next week in that Hamilton Southeastern game. The Mudsock, which should be, all kinds of fans, obviously, is every year, but even maybe a bigger game this year than it was last year when they were both undefeated and ranked highly. So that to me, I think this Fishers offense is better than it was last year. And that's not even talking about Kobe Martin, who went for 164 yards and 3 touchdowns tonight. And really thought Noblesville just not able to stop Fishers. They needed some stops early in that game. I know, their running attack kind of gets a lot of attention, and rightly so. They run for a lot of yards a lot of times and a lot in games, and they had the first 2 games against Mount Vernon and Homestead, but in this one, held to 126 for the night. They did throw for 166 overall. Jacob Baker showed he could throw some. He was 11 for 20 for 166, but obviously that's not their forte. They were down 14-0, down 28-7, and just constantly playing from behind. Logan Schaffner did have a 98-yard kickoff return late in the game. Also had a 58-yard touchdown on a screen pass he caught in the middle of the field and somehow scooted out of there, got to the sideline, went 58 yards. So Schaffner really is an impressive player. Aiden Brewer is too, a tight end. He's a junior, and he made a really nice 18-yard touchdown catch in the second quarter for Noblesville. But just not enough stops, really. I mean, the offense did get stopped a few times. They weren't able to run, like I said, like they are a lot. They had the first couple of games, and that's what they want to do. Just couldn't quite get things going with the run. But I thought defensively they just had to get some stops. Couldn't get off the field. Fisher's 9 for 10 on third down conversions, which is crazy statistic. But yeah, a lot of talk after the game was about playing HSC next week, the Mudsock game. Like I said, the Fishers lost both times last year to HSC in that game. And the first one was 28-27 in overtime. Really good game, right down to the wire. Fishers could have won that game or at least sent it to another overtime and couldn't. And then the sectional game, a little bit more lopsided. HSC won that one 35-13 and won that one pretty handily. Kind of controlled that game. I covered both those games, and definitely the second one HSC controlled throughout. But yeah, that's a lot to look forward to next week. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, I think Fishers is probably more well equipped this year to win that game than they were last year, and we'll see. We'll find out. That should be a great game on Friday night next week. That game will be played at Fishers, and then Noblesville. We'll see what happens with their program moving forward. They've had this problem of kind of getting through and winning the HCC games. I talked to Coach Sharp after the game. He said he's not worried about that, or he's not concerned about kind of going in the tank, at least after after this loss. He feels like there's more character. He said after the game we said, hey, just we're scrapping it. It's 0-0 again starting next week, and they do play Westfield next week, so that should be an interesting game also. For Noblesville, I don't think all is lost by this. Obviously, I think they're a team that's going to continue to do what they do, and they're going to try to run. And they did show that they can throw the ball some. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. I wouldn't give up on that team at this point. I think it's still a team that can be dangerous, and they beat some teams last year with that running game and then sprinkling in some passing. Some other games tonight. It was a big night of sort of games that we thought we could learn something and games that looked like they would be competitive and close. And Brownsburg Franklin Central was one of those. Brownsburg ends up coming back to win 35-21 over Franklin Central, and had to do some work in that game. They were down 21-14 at halftime, and then able to take the lead in that one. Garrett Sherrill had 173 yards on 30 carries. Also had a 58-yard touchdown reception on a screen pass. And that running game for Brownsburg kind of took over as that game went on. So Brownsburg stays undefeated with that win over Franklin Central. That's the first loss this season for the Flashes, who dropped to 2-1. Another team I think that's capable of being really dangerous this year as well. I have talked about them before, and I don't think tonight's result really changes that thought very much. Kind of surprising, Lutheran handled Triton Central easily, 43-13. It was 28-6 at halftime, and really Lutheran Triton Central unable to mount much of a comeback in that one. So yeah, impressive for Lutheran. I don't know if anyone can handle that team in Class 1A for sure. Westfield beat Zionsville tonight, 28-27. That game, we're kind of tracking that one a little bit out here at Noblesville. Zionsville led in that game, and then Westfield came back and won that one 28-27. A crazy game. Greenfield Central, a huge win over Mount Vernon, 41-35. I know Clark Wade had a video on that one, so catch up with that one on IndyStar.com. That was a wild game, a huge win for that Greenfield Central program too. Whiteland beat Decatur Central 31-15. So Whiteland comes back from their loss last week to Kokomo, and maybe that speaks to just how good Kokomo is. Really, Whiteland, that's a strong win against a really good Decatur Central team that was coming off a win over New Pal last week. So impressive win for Whiteland, the the runner-ups last year in Class 5A. They come back and get a nice win tonight in that one. The Battle of Lawrence, Lawrence North jumped out to a big lead, beat Lawrence Central tonight, 41-26. That game was played at Lucas Oil, like I said. HSC, who I mentioned earlier, they beat Avon 42-23 in a game I don't think that was really that close most of the way. Jalen Alexander, 164 yards rushing, and it looked like that pretty much told the story. Cathedral bounced back from the loss to Brownsburg over Penn, 35-6. Game again, that was a running clock game by halftime. Danny O'Neill had 218 passing yards and looked like a bunch of touchdown passes. I think he had 5 touchdown passes, so all in the first half. Roncalli gave Chittard a good game. That game, 14-7, Chittard, a defensive struggle. Neither team scored in the second half in that game. Carmel got a big win over Detroit King, 39-0, and good win for Carmel. Their their second. They beat Homestead in the opener, and now they are 2-1 on the season. Pendleton Heights wins again. Wins 40-0 over Newcastle. So Pendleton Heights 3-0. Guerin Catholic handled Heritage Christian 31-7. And Plainfield, how about Plainfield? 31-7 over Mooresville. So Plainfield, 3-0 under Tyler Bless, off to a really good start this season. Greenwood continues to pile up the points, 43-28. They beat Martinsville. That's just another one. Brock Riddle, 5 touchdown passes. He's having a huge season so far for Greenwood. So the Woodmen laying the wood to some people early this year. Brebeuf Jesuit 44-31 over Mishawaka Marion. Cecina beat Covenant Christian 33-22. And, some other scores. Wow, Ben Davis 62-0 beats Pike. Ben Davis plays IMG Academy next week. That'll be interesting to see what happens in that one. Not sure what to expect there. Center Grove 34-7 beat Louisville Trinity. So Another really good win for Center Grove over a traditionally strong program. Tyler Cherry had 280 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Noah Coy, 143 receiving yards and two touchdowns. Looked like Center Grove ran the ball pretty well in that game too. Obviously played very good defensively. So the Trojans have their swagger back fully, it appears. Danville beats Lebanon 28-26 in a wild one. Franklin beat Perry Meridian 26-20. Perry's a lot better. That was an overtime game, actually. Good win there for Franklin and a tough loss for Perry. Let's see. Hamilton Heights, they win 15-0 over Lafayette Central Catholic. Monrovia, wow, over Linton Stockton 27-26 in overtime. I'm just seeing some of these scores, too. New Pile beats Yorktown 30-22. That's a maybe closer game than expected. Park Tudor in a wild one, 44-38 over Shortridge. Shortridge had a big lead in that game, so Park Tudor rallies, comes back and wins. And Warren Central, they get in the win column 49-17 over North Central. And Western Boone beats Crawfordsville 42-14. So that's pretty much the story from tonight. Like I said, I had Fishers beat Noblesville out here at Noblesville. Again, it was 48-22. And, the Tigers move on. They'll play HSC next week in what should be a great game, wild atmosphere, huge crowd, all those things out at Fishers next week. And that will do it. I appreciate you guys watching the videos and catching up tonight. And we'll talk to you. Have a lot of everything this week on IndyStar.com, predictions, stories, and whatnot. So good night, everybody.